And we're back.
Have you noticed that our drinks and dialogue have been low on the drinks lately?
Yeah, I have noticed that, but I'm not going to drink alcohol in the morning or
I know
afternoon for that matter.
mine's. I found this at Michael's. It was a buy one get one, so it was like $24.99
Uh-huh.
for one of them, and then you got the second one free. They're
Okay.
40 ounces.
Wow.
Like it's as big as my head. So
Well,
my
I'm
daughter
just
and I
using a
got me.
regular blender bottle. I actually borrowed it from my hubby, and
There you go.
I've just got a I don't know what to call it, but anyways, it's not alcoholic.
Mine's just pure water because I figure 40 ounces, that comes pretty close to what you're supposed to be drinking in a day.
Okay.
So we're just putting off talking about Bill C-2.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that we've kind of made or tried to make clear on this channel is that we try to be as nonpartisan as possible, even though we are definitely left leaning.
Leaning.
We're strongly left leaning. This is my left. um, and we were strong proponents, and I personally voted for the Liberal Party and Carney. But that is not to say that we can't be critical and we cannot like some of the things that we're seeing. And I've actually been kind of surprised about the lack of coverage, or at least in-depth, intelligent coverage around Bill C-2. You see it online with some channels that are doing it, but the regular out there news, they don't seem to be really focusing much on it, considering
Oh.
some of the drastic changes that it
Mhm.
makes. So Bill C-2 has just been introduced, and they have done some discussions on it, and then it's going to have to go to committee and blah, blah, blah. So this is not an approved bill. This is not the way it will be necessarily. But yeah, I have concerns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you say, I mean, like this is not the final bill by any stretch, but I fully expect the Senate is going to have an awful lot to say about this.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Bill C-2 is the first bill that the Liberals have put forward under Mark Carney, and it is called the Strong Borders Act. Some people have said it is the Appease Trump Act. I don't believe that. I think that some of the things they're attempting to do are things that need to happen. There has been concern over the level of immigration for quite some time, and it has increased substantially. And so I think that needed to be addressed. I'm not sure how much I think this will do it, but anyway, we can talk about that later. But it's such a broad bill. Somebody referred to it as an omnibus bill, but it's not. It's about strong borders. But some of the things, like there's money laundering in there, proceeds from money laundering. There are things that touch on your online privacy, things like that, that I understand why they're trying to do it when it comes to stronger borders, but it has ramifications for all Canadians that should be of concern. So what they're actually trying to do with the bill, I support. However, not enough attention has been paid to the ramifications to everyday Canadians that are law-abiding. That's my take.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and I can't disagree with any of that. I can't disagree with any of that. Because, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, okay, I know you have already tried to do so. I have not, like trying to wade through the actual bill itself. And it is like most typical government bills. It is just so much blah, 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 all in legalese that is not necessarily easily waded through. And then top it with the fact that, of course, the bill is both in English and French, and you've got 140 pages of, oh my God. So then we depend on, to try to get an easier breakdown of what the bill is. And so what I did is I went to the Government of Canada website and I looked it up, and it lists everything, but it doesn't actually tell you what it is.
Yeah. And I'm always leery about, I mean, I downloaded the bill from the government website. But we always have to keep in mind that what's on the government website is what the government decides to put on the website. They're not necessarily, if there's something that affects everyday Canadians, that's not necessarily what they're highlighting. It's a one-sided view. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Because I mean, when you talk about strong borders, what's the first thing that pops into everybody's head? Is what's gonna pop in our refugees? What's gonna pop in our immigration? What's gonna pop in is illegal guns.
Yeah.
What's gonna pop in is fentanyl. What's going to pop in is all these things that have to do with things crossing the border. And so people are not going to, like regular Canadians are not going to automatically clue in on, okay, well, this is going to affect me.
Yeah.
Because people never do.
No.
The only time people pay attention to how it affects me is when it comes to like budget day kind of thing, economic bills.
Well, it's the YFM. It's the YFN station. What's in it for me?
Ah, yes.
What's in it for me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to kind of give people an idea of what this bill looks like. So, for example, and you kind of have to have the Customs Act side by side because, for example, let's look at this. Whoops. It says this paragraph of the act is replaced by the following. And then it says the foreign national has made a claim for refugee protection that has been determined to be eligible to be referred to the Refugee Protection Division or that is pending before the division or the Refugee Appeal Act or division. There's no context whatsoever about what it was and what it means. And this, I have no idea what this is talking about. So then you have to go to the Customs Act. So anyway, all of that to say, wading through this is just mind-numbing. So I think, the research that I've done has been looking at the Act, looking at the Customs Act, starting to try to bring them together, and then realizing, that I'm not getting paid for this. And so then I started popping around the internet and reading some articles. And one of the things that stood out for me was it is on YouTube channels that some of the more in-depth stuff is happening and people are pointing out things and some of the ramifications of some of these things in the Act. And you're not seeing that much in legacy media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the things that are in here, and I'm not going to bring it up right within the Act because we'd be here all day and I'd be scrolling and all of that kind of stuff. So some of the things that are of concern are things like post office. In the past, my understanding is, and all of this is our understanding, it's not gospel. In the past, you could inspect packages. Now, without any kind of probable cause they say there's probable cause, but they don't outline what that is. They can just pull a letter and open it up and look at it. If it is, for example, your paycheck, they can hold on to it for 60 or 90 days before they decide, no, this has nothing to do with anything, and they give it back to you. In the meantime, if you've missed your rent payment, they have no obligation to help you out with that or pay anything back or your SOL. So now, having said that, and this is what it goes, what has this got to do with strong borders? They're trying to tamp down on the drug for sale or mail order drugs, because you can, right now, you can order and get drugs sent through the mail, and they can come in an envelope and whatever. So they're trying to tamp down on that. That's a case of, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If they think something has drugs in it and they're illegal drugs, they've been obtained illegally, sold illegally, yes, absolutely. But when you have a bill that is so broad and so sweeping that it then encompasses, we can take an everyday Canadian's correspondence mail and open it up and keep it for a while. All of a sudden, what became something that made sense becomes something that is really a rights and privacy issue.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, though, I mean, as a for example, like I just got this in the on the front step today. It's a CPU fan. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But it came from China. I mean, I cracked it open, but it had already been opened. And it's always been like that. It's always been like that because I fix computers, I fix cell phones. Most of those parts are coming from China.
But
so
Grace, they can do this domestically.
Oh,
So-
okay.
Yeah. So you send from Alberta to BC, they can check domestically. They can do letters, not just parcels. Like, it's quite an extension of what they can do now.
Okay.
On top of that, they are able to, forget how this works exactly, but basically there's a few pre-crime allowances. So for example, if we catch you with fentanyl, yeah, you're going to go down. But if we catch you with the stuff that is used to make fentanyl, you can go down too.
Mm-hmm. Well, but the only reason I was mentioning what I mentioned, though, is because they've always been able to open parcels. Like, this is not new.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but as you say, now they can do it domestically, and I didn't realize that.
And they can do letters, not only parcels.
Yeah.
So there's a few things. The other one that is a real, I think, broad overreach is they can now say to an internet provider, you must develop a way to track people and their internet usage so that when we come to you, and we do not need a search warrant to do this, you must provide us with somebody's internet usage stuff, information.
Okay. And so then my response to that is, I mean, same thing. That has always been there, but ISPs could always just say, screw you.
There was never a legal requirement for them to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
the internet providers could say, well, we don't track that, or they could say, well, screw you, or they could say, get us a search warrant.
Yeah, because I mean, so what this kind of reminds me of is, so when high-speed internet became a thing, so we're talking, it's been almost 30 years now. Yeah.
That's a whole different thing.
And people started pirating music and pirating movies and pirating TV shows, which still goes on today. Don't get me wrong. Like, people still download illegally. Absolutely, they do. And the RIAA, for example, in the States, which is the recording industry, they could send letters to ISPs around the world and say, hey, someone was torrenting an episode of the X-Files, and we want the name and the IP number of whoever it is that's doing this. And the ISP could just say, nah, screw you. But that's only if the request came from a private body, which the RIAA is. I've never known of the government to request any of that type of information, at least here in Canada. I know that they've been doing that in the States for a while. So, yeah.
I'm just trying to find where it starts here. Yeah, but no, now they will essentially be able to track anybody they want and get information on anybody they want.
Which is why VPNs come extremely important.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, VPNs as a product were always sold as a way to hide, I guess.
Your location.
Your location. Yeah, it's essentially for geolocation. So, for example, you could borrow a friend's Netflix password kind of thing, and they lived in the States. And so you could watch Netflix US versus Netflix Canada.
Right.
Now, as I say, I mean, VPNs have become a lot more sophisticated, not too surprisingly. It happens with all technology. And it goes beyond geolocation now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now I'll be honest, I've always used a VPN. I've always been a little paranoid that way. I've always used a VPN, not because I care about Netflix, but sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I am going to do, I think, a little bit more of a deep dive into that section in particular. Because like I say, it
Mind
is
numbing.
well, it's just, it takes a lot of work to compare the two acts and to see where the changes are. And then once you figure out, okay, this is the text change, and then you have to figure out, well, what does that mean? And what are they actually saying? You know, what did it used to say? What does it say now? And what does that mean? And that takes some time.
It takes some time, and my God, a lawyer who would work pro bono would be really nice right now.
Actually, I should check Runkle of the Bailey's YouTube channel and see if he's covering any of it.
Who?
There's a YouTube channel called Runkle of the Bailey. It's Ian Runkle, who is an Edmonton lawyer.
Oh, okay.
And he's never come out and said it, but he's well, let me back up. He is a firearms expert, and he is strong on firearm rights. Hates Trudeau and the Liberals. And I can totally see him diving into something like this.
Well, what makes me wonder when nowadays, anyways, especially after the last election, it makes me wonder, is it really truly that they hated Trudeau or the Liberals, or just they hated Trudeau?
I think it's both. I think some people, well, there were some peoples and some factions that were, is the minute Carney got into office, they were
the fuck Carney crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. With the bumper sticker, fuck Carney. And then there's, which is, they will always hate, it's liberal, we hate them. And there will be a section of people that will always be like that.
Yeah, a section, yes. But the number of people that I'm seeing online saying, or people that are, okay, as a for example, my husband works with an individual at his job. He is a staunch conservative, staunch. I mean, I don't know that he was actually part of the fuck Trudeau crowd, but he was a staunch conservative, couldn't stand the Liberals. Even he's saying, I like what I'm seeing. I'm going to give Mark Carney a chance.
Yep. Yeah, there's some that are more party and partisan and some that are less so. And I mean, it was funny. I heard one YouTuber say, when Doug Ford is referring to Carney as Santa, you know you should be concerned.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, okay, so Mark Carney is an economist. We already know that. Governor Bank of Canada, Governor Bank of England, blah, 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 blah. But he's also a red Tory or a blue liberal, given the circumstances as they are right now. And it makes me wonder, you know, like when you consider all the promises that he made, and I have zero doubt that he wants to actually carry through on those promises. But I mean, if I recall correctly, Throne speech, that he said that he was going to see to it that the budget was balanced in 3 years. But looking at how he's going to look on spending, like, home building, this bill, the Strong Borders Act, uh, doing away with provincial trade barriers, like these all cost money.
Yeah.
And I honestly wonder how the hell is he going to balance the budget under those circumstances?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got an idea. He's probably got a better idea than anybody.
Yeah.
Given how his brain works when it comes to the economy.
Yeah.
But I would just like to see it myself. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I am of the mindset. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a balanced budget, but that should not come at the expense of Canadians.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes there's such a focus on balancing the budget. Well, look at Ralph Klein.
Oh, yeah.
Former, oh my dog. Former Alberta Premier who rode into the sunset with we're going to balance the budget, and he did.
Oh, yeah.
And in my opinion, we are, how many years ago was that? Was Ralph Klein?
It was the early 90s. I mean, I lost my job in healthcare because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the early 90s, here we are, 30 years, 40 years, 35 years later, and we are still trying to dig ourselves out of the infrastructure deficit that caused.
Mm-hmm. And now that deficit is being, given everything that the UCP is doing right now, everything's getting worse again.
Yeah.
Healthcare never recovered, and now healthcare is getting worse. Education never recovered, and now it's getting worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it should be done on the backs of everyday Canadians just to say that, hey, we balance the budget, so yeehaw for us. Like, it's kind of like good debt and bad debt. You don't want to have a whole bunch of debt in credit cards. Okay. You could have $100,000 mortgage, and that is better than having $80,000 worth of debt on credit cards. There's different kinds of debt, and to me, it's just sort of all brushed with one stroke of, we've got debt. So, and there was something that Carney said during the election that really resonated with me, which is, it's time to spend some money on things that are really important. Like, we need to spend some money on our national defense. We need to spend some money on our housing. We need, but it's a good spend as opposed to the 9% per year increase in federal operational funding.
No, and that's true. That's true. I mean, the people that say that, well, the government should live within its means. Well, I mean, you cannot run a country, you cannot run a province, you cannot run a municipality like a household. They're different.
No. Or the other favorite of mine is run it like a business. Yeah, but it's not a business.
No, it's not. Anyways, back to the topic on hand.
Yes, and based on the topic at hand, I want to just share something else, and that is an article. I'm having trouble seeing everything here. This is an article on from Amnesty International.
Ah, yes.
Where the new bill is being called, like, basically a Trump-like bill. New border bill, an attack on the human right to seek asylum. So they're saying that the federal government's sprawling new border bill is an attack on refugees' right to seek asylum. In particular, if passed, the bill would make it virtually impossible for most people entering Canada via the U.S. to have their refugee claim reviewed by the Immigration and Refugee Board. I think that has pretty much always been the case. I think that there's a thing that if you've made it to the US, talk to them about being a refugee. You don't move from the US into Canada, and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, and that's because of the safe third party agreement. So it's been like that for years.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is not new.
And then it says the bill will effectively block people who have been in Canada for more than a year from seeking refugee status. People who face persecution, torture, or worse in their countries of origin could be unfairly denied refugee protection by Canada as a result. I think what I have an issue with Bill C-2 in regards to refugees is there's a lot of focus on refugees versus immigrants, from what I can see.
Yeah. And yeah, very true.
And I crunched some numbers, which, here it is. In 2023, Canada welcomed 471,000 and change permanent immigrants, which exceeded the target of 465,000. But the refugees that year were 143,770. So approximately 30% of new permanent immigrants were refugees. And this bill seems to focus on that 30%. But that is one of the concerns I have with the bill, is that it is unfairly targeting only refugees. I think personally, we do need to tighten things up. I agree that we do. I'm just not sure this is the way to do it. The only way to do it.
Well, the thing is, though, is that like I think what Canadians have been griping about for the past few years has been the overly generous number of immigrants coming into the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we overshot our target for that year.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I also agree. I mean, refugees should not be the one that are being targeted here. And yet they are.
I think they need to be targeted as well as immigrants in general. I think we need to take a look at it as a whole, because it's 470,000 as a whole. And refugees are only a portion of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to refugees, I mean, even though I personally am an atheist now, I grew up in the United Church of Canada, which is a very progressive church in the context of where churches stand here in Canada. But like back in the mid to late 70s, my mom volunteered at our church because we sponsored over a Vietnamese family, a Vietnamese boat family, which was a big thing back in the 70s. And they went on to own the biggest t-shirt factory here in the capital region. They still do.
Yeah.
And then when all the crap was happening with the Syrian refugees, once again, I mean, my mom was already gone at that point, but my dad volunteered, and he did a lot of running around with the Syrian refugees that the church sponsored. Making sure that they were getting to the doctor, getting to the dentist, getting to their English lessons, that kind of thing. And so from that standpoint, because of the fact that most of the refugees that I have had any exposure to have gone on to become, working, productive, not necessarily citizens, but residents of this country. Mm-hmm. Now, the Vietnamese family in question, yes, they did go on to get their Canadian citizenship. It's still too soon for the Syrian family to have gotten their citizenship, but they are PRs now.
Yeah.
So, but my point is that refugees become productive members of society because they are so grateful that they have been brought in. You think about one of the biggest chocolate companies in Canada now, Peace by Chocolate. I mean, they're based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and they have the most amazing chocolate. But it's run by a Syrian family who were refugees here to Canada.
We'll talk about the chocolate later because I have questions.
You what?
I have questions. Yeah, and I think I understand. Like, we're in a housing crisis right now, an
Yes.
affordable housing crisis. So to take more people in that we can't house, we can't provide appropriate health care for because of the wait times, and all of that kind of stuff, everything that's going on in healthcare is a bit irresponsible. But then there's the whole humanitarian part of it, which makes it really difficult. Because if you have a family who's fleeing sure death, the idea that we don't have a house for them is a real, would seem like a really weak thing if you're facing death with your family.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I'll sleep under a tree. Oh, have you seen our winters? But,
Yeah.
like,
Well, one thing I think that the federal government did right when it came to refugees back in the 70s, and it's still the case now, is the fact that Canada was able to sponsor more refugees because it allowed private individuals or private like churches or private businesses to sponsor those families, with the caveat that those individuals or churches or families were financially responsible for those refugee families. So it took some of the stress off the system. But yes, that doesn't solve the housing crisis. I get it.
yeah, I was
It
just going to
does not
say,
solve the housing crisis. But the fact that it allowed Canada to sponsor more refugees because private individuals, etc., were allowed to pay for their sponsorship.
yeah, yes, there is that. But in the end, they're still living in houses and
Yeah.
using health care that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm going to be watching this pretty closely, see what happens. I know that there was some requests for changes, or there was a conversations going on when they had the discussion about it. But it'll be interesting to see what this all comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody,
No, go ahead. Continue.
One of the YouTubers that I was watching made a comment, or somebody made a comment in his live chat, that maybe this is a negotiating tactic. We're going to put some of these things in here so that we have something to negotiate to get it out, to get it passed. So we'll put it in there as a red herring kind of thing, and then we'll capitulate that, okay, we'll take that out. And
well, and the thing, that's exactly what I was just going to say. There's a part of me that wonders that, I mean, okay, yes, they have a minority government, but a very strong minority government. It's only going to take 2 or 3 votes to get something passed. And this sounds very much like something that conservatives would put forward.
But my thoughts on that, does Carney want to be known for this as being his first bill? I mean, obviously he does.
Does Carney what?
Want him to be known as this is his first bill if he's put things in there that he doesn't think should be there as a negotiating tactic? I don't know.
Possibly?
I'm just throwing.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, because Carney has, and one of the appeals of Carney was his lack of political experience.
Yes.
Is this showing a lack of political experience? Is this showing that he doesn't really get how to play the game? Or maybe he's just, maybe he's playing 4D chess.
Yeah. And who knows? As I say, I mean, how well do we really know him at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not a politician. We don't have any background on him beyond his positions as governor of blah, blah, blah.
And his book.
Yes. So, and the fact that he is a red Tory / blue liberal, however you want to talk about it. But, I mean, as I say, there are aspects of this bill that feel very conservative.
Oh, yeah.
Like more conservative than a red Tory or a blue liberal.
But having said that, I think we should specify it feels conservative, but not new conservative.
Yeah, definitely not neoconservative, no.
This harks back to more progressive conservative
Yes, exactly, which is what a blue liberal or a red Tory is.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what they are.
But I think that some people may not get the nuance, especially if they've only known the far right.
Yeah.
And that's actually why I liked Carney.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, that because I consider myself to have been more of a right-leaning centrist, in that I feel I am financially conservative while being socially progressive.
Hmm. And whereas I am more of a left-leaning centrist,
Hmm.
but because of everything that's happened over the course of the last 10 years, it's like those of us that were centrists at all have been forced left.
Yeah.
Or right, and not centrist anymore, because centrist apparently doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Not in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to make it clear when we say conservative, in regards to Carney, it's not far right conservatism that things have sort of
Yeah.
digressed to. But anyway, I think we're going to have to keep an eye on this bill and see what happens and how it all shakes out. And I'm going to be really interested to see how much coverage it gets in legacy media.
Yep.
So, okay, nice chatting.
Yep. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.